Welcome to my Pride Month live. Today is all things gay, all things queer. Uh, but there's a heavier, serious note to it because there's a lot going on in the world, as many queer people know and allies hopefully know. If you're an ally, you know. If you're not an ally, like if you think you're an ally but you don't know why queer people are worried right now, that means you're not actually an ally if you don't understand why queer people are worried. Just saying. Not sorry. Ooh, don't go to sleep, computer. I need you. I have notes because I'm a shit show and I can't be trusted to be organized otherwise. Before I forget, because I will forget, because my brain is just full of holes and just a memory is not what other people's memory is, but that's okay because I get shit done anyway. Uh, I have a new shirt and I want to show it off because I'm really excited because last, I guess March or April, I had a shirt I was gonna do for Autism Month, and then I was like, I don't think anybody's gonna like my shirt. It's not like I don't think anybody's gonna buy it. I was like, I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think in this political climate anyone's gonna care about a neurodiversity shirt. And so I was like, I'm not gonna do it. And then I forgot to cancel the shirt sale, and I had already like scheduled it. And then I got an email. It's like your shirt sale is live. Congratulations. Uh, and so I was like, oh, well, that's news to me. I guess I better take some promo photos for the shirt sale that I thought I canceled months ago. And everyone really liked it, and I was really surprised by that. So thank you everyone for that for the first run of the shirt sale. So that's why we're doing it again with the new one. It's the tagline for the blog, Refusing Assimilation into Neurotypical Society, but it has a new design. So this will be up for the next 15 days. But if people have demand and people ask and they miss it, like, sometimes paydays don't line up, or I don't know, you just don't see the post because that's how social media works. I'm gonna, if people let me know they want to get it and they missed the 15-day window, I'll probably extend it. I think I extended it twice with the first shirt. And I did one more time out of spite because someone stole my design and put it on Amazon. And so I was like, well, as long as that's up on Amazon, I'm going to put mine back up. So that was like a thing. But hopefully that won't happen again. But it probably will because my designs always end up on Amazon. But the good thing about Bonfire is they have a team that they'll actually help fight to get it taken down. So I pass that off to them and hopefully they'll get it removed. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, hopefully it doesn't happen again because I just launched this today, but we'll see. But if so you were new, before the MAGA regime started their anti-DEIA campaign, the shirt, it's at bonfire.com/neurorebel-2. Thank you for asking. And I also just put up a blog post with a link about it on my Substack page. Like right before I went live, I posted it and then I went live. So if you go to my Substack, you can find the shirt there too. Good question. I didn't see, I'm not good at doing the promotion-y stuff. That's my least favorite thing. And so yeah, I'm like, let me just get this over with because I don't know, it's a thing. And I really appreciate your support though, because I used to be a DEIA consultant, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, right? Disabilities, autism, neurodiversity, neuroinclusion, but also I did a lot of queer inclusion work and queer inclusion work with organizations before all the propaganda against DEIA and the controversy started and businesses started to become really afraid to do DEIA programs. And so for years, Pride Month, which I started calling Pride Season because I couldn't do all of the Pride clients in one month because there used to be so many of them, would be the second half of May through the first half of July, or at least the first week of July, because it just couldn't all fit in June. And I had one client for Pride Month this year. I don't think I had any. Maybe I had one last year, but it used to be so many. It was my big time as a consultant. It's sometimes you have no clients, sometimes you have a lot, and you just kind of learn to stretch things out. But right now, it's supposed to be my busiest time of year, and I had one client that I did all of the work for except for doing the last, giving the presentation, and they chickened out last minute. So I have 0 Pride Month clients this year. 0. Doing 0 queer inclusion Pride presentations. That's it sucks to see, and what sucks to see more is I am seeing others in the space who teach neuro inclusion or queer inclusion, especially queer inclusion. Like I saw the queer inclusion stuff go first. Like that started to go 2 years ago. Um, but I have seen other inclusion people who are doing all kinds of different inclusion, indigenous inclusion, all of these things. Like the clients are backing off. They are chickening out. They are tacoing. No, they're not taco because that's Trump. But they're chickening out, and it's really sad to see. Um, but I'm rolling with the punches, and I will be okay somehow. But that's the T-shirt sale and other things. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work because um, I am passionate about providing a counter narrative to the one that's being provided because our media is missing a lot of things. Our news is not very inclusive. And there's just a lot of things I don't like with how news is. And then just like some people don't watch the news. Some people get their news from social media, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Um, Actually, I think it has a lot of reasons that's a bad thing because like your algorithm can easily like put you in this little echo chamber where you only see one thing. That's kind of what happens with the MAGA people, where they only see like what's in their little ecosphere, right? And they don't see anything else outside of it. But that's a problem, right, with social media. But I'm trying to use that to my advantage to provide a like counter space, like an anti-MAGA echo chamber in my spaces, right? Where like MAGA has like, they want to have half the voice. They want to have like both sides of the transgenderism debate. It's like you're not trans. You don't get to have any part of this debate. Back off. Like you need to just shut up, right? Like they want to say, oh, there's two sides, but the other side is hate, right? So no, there's no time or space for that. So I don't allow it in my space. They get zero air in my spaces. Like they're just yeeted out so quick. Bye, gone. Bye bye. No more. I don't need that, in my life. And I don't want my readers to have to deal with that. And at the same time, like, I don't even know, like, because I spend so many hours a day moderating right now because the page on Facebook has just poof, and Facebook has just got some of the worst. But like, the more I start to moderate and the more I look at these profiles, the more it looks like these aren't even real people. Like, they're fake. They're either like bots. They might be bots. Everything's computer. Sorry, they might be bots or they're people with fake burner profiles, right? Either one or the other. They're either bots or people who are too cowardly to use their real faces and their real names. And I think that's interesting because it's like you're a bunch of fakes or cowards, and neither one has any value in my opinion. So they want to be adults. They can come up to the table and use their real names and say those hateful things with their full chest and face the consequences. There's all these free speech people, like they just don't want to face the consequences of their free speech from their peers. They don't even understand what free speech is. That's the sad thing. Like they don't understand what free speech is. They think being banned or blocked from a Facebook page is a violation of their free speech. No. All right. It's Pride Month, right? And so this is like supposed to be a lot of us like in previous years and some years had been like a celebratory time because as a community, queer people, we've been through the ringer over the years. We've been through so much and we've pushed so hard just to be where we are. And we still have so much further to go. And they want to push us backwards. They want to push us backwards. And it's like, we aren't even where we need to be yet. And they're already wanting to push us backwards. And so I've even had people say, like, I don't know, why we need Pride Month anymore. Like, gay marriage is legal now. Y'all have everything. Y'all don't need this Pride Month anymore. And it's just like, we obviously do. Um, and so I want to talk about something that is happening. Well, it's news, still happening, but happened in Texas recently, which is like a prime example of why actually there's a lot of shit happening in Texas right now. That's a prime example of why we need Pride Month still. But this thing is going to be a content warning, what I want to talk about. And so just mentally prepare everyone for that. This is I'm going to be talking about a hate crime that happened in Texas. Hang on. This post better not be gone. That's going to be, gotta be here. Hang on. Because I want to read it from the original poster's words so I don't get it messed up because I did do the reshare on my Facebook page. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm in Texas for anyone who doesn't know. And is anyone familiar with Jonathan Joss, the voice actor who played John Redcorn on King of the Hill? Um, I Let me gather myself. I'm just going to read the statement that was put up on the Jonathan Joss page from John's husband, Tristan. And so this is going to be probably hard for people to hear, but I just want to pass it along because they were really wanting to get their side out and they really wanted people to hear what happened because this was a hate crime and we're in Texas. It may not be pursued as such. They had been trying to get help for a while and basically were ignored. And so Jonathan Joss was lost recently in tragedy. And I will read this in John's husband, Tristan's own words. My husband, Jonathan Joss, and I were involved in the shooting while checking the mail on the site of our former home. That home was burned down after over 2 years of threats from people in the area who repeatedly told us they would set it on fire. We reported these threats to law enforcement multiple times and nothing was done. Throughout that time, we were harassed regularly by individuals who made it clear they did not accept our relationship, that they're gay men, okay? Much of the harassment was openly homophobic. When we returned to the site to check our mail, we discovered the skull of one of our dogs and its harness placed in clear view. This caused both of us severe emotional distress, and we began yelling and crying in response to the pain of what we saw. While we were doing this, a man approached us. He started yelling violent homophobic slurs at us, then raised a gun from his lap and fired. Jonathan and I had no weapons. We were not threatening anyone. We were grieving. We were standing side by side when the man fired. Jonathan pushed me out of his way and saved my life. Excuse me. Jonathan is my husband. He gave me more love in our time together than most people ever get. We were newlyweds. We picked Valentine's Day. We were in the process of looking for a trailer and planning our future. He was murdered by someone who could not stand the sight of two men loving each other. I was with him when he passed. I told him how much he was loved. To everyone who supported him, his fans, his friends, know that he valued you deeply. He saw you as his family. My focus is now on protecting Jonathan's legacy and honoring the life we built together. If your concern is how someone copes with trauma or how loudly they speak when recounting injustice and being ignored by authorities, then you never truly cared about my husband. Jonathan saved my life, and I will carry that forward. I will protect what he built. Tristan Kern de Gonzalez. And so, that's just happened up the road, I believe, in San Antonio, Texas. They were just in Austin recently. So not far. And so I'm in Texas, for all who don't know, and that just hits close to home for a lot of reasons. I mean, I who didn't grow up on King of the Hill, right? Like that's like a voice from my childhood, and just to hear just the hate crime and this it's just close to home, and just so many things about it are just really hard to sit with and hard to stomach. Um, but Jonathan's husband was asking for us to help get the word out about what actually happened because the way it's being covered in the media and lack of coverage in the media down here is not good. And so I am resharing. I shared it on my Facebook page. That was a post that was on Facebook on the Jonathan Joss page. And so that's why. Thank you for letting me read that because that's one example of why we still very much need Pride Month today in 2025, especially today. And like in places like Texas right now with MAGA and everything, like because Texas, MAGA is really big here. Like they are big here. This kind of stuff is gonna be emboldened. It's only gonna get worse. And it's really a shame that we didn't teach queer history in schools, right? Or at least, like, the events leading up to Stonewall or the history of Pride Month, because I think people really don't understand, like, what it was like in 1969, uh, and how they want things to be going back to how it was or maybe even worse. Like, if Project 2025, if these architects, Russ Vought and Teal and all these assholes have their way, JD Vance, like, they're all involved in Project 2025. If, like, MAGA has their way, they want queer life to look more like it did in 1969. Um, in 1969, like, being homosexual was a medical condition. It was a mental defect back then. And so that was used to deny jobs and healthcare and all kinds of things for queer people. It was used to medicalize people and to send them into forced conversion therapies, similar to how autistic people are today. And they want to do that again. They want to bring back queer conversion therapy. They're doing their best to bring it back, and it's going to come back if we don't stop it. So yeah, that's another reason we need Pride in 2025, maybe more than we have in previous years. The other thing a lot of people today, especially, maybe straight people, might not realize is that, homosexuality, being queer has been criminalized in the past. In 1969, before Stonewall, being queer was criminalized. Like, there was no out of the closet back then. Everyone was in the closet because it wasn't safe for anyone to be openly queer, because people were violent, like we've seen with this case that just happened in Texas, or with law enforcement, because there were laws in nearly every state that made same-sex relationships illegal. And so that would allow people to just be arrested based on their identities, right? There were also cross-dressing bans in the 1960s leading up to Pride and Stonewall. And, police were outdating these masquerade laws. There was one called the 3-article rule that required people to wear 3 articles of clothing matching their gender assignment matched at birth. And so under these really completely unconstitutional policies, police would just harass, arrest, molest, strip search, and frequently just beat queer people for cross-dressing or for being caught, like, holding hands with someone of the same relationship, like, same gender. Like, it was dangerous to be queer in the 1960s, and they want it to be dangerous again. And so what happened with Pride all of those years ago, about 30 years ago, I think, uh, is that it became a pressure cooker, right? Because when you dehumanize people, you take everything away from them and they find themselves with nothing left to lose. And then you back them into a corner, like you've got someone in a corner and they're gonna have to either fight or be taken under. Like you fight or you give in. And there's just only so much pressure people can take, right? Eventually, like, there's going to be an explosion or an implosion. Something's going to happen if you keep putting pressure. Like, if you ever watch the hydraulic press channel on Instagram, it's so soothing. So soothing. Is this shirt and color available? Yes, it is the lightweight tank top. And it is available in this color, in the lightweight tank top on the link. You have to click. There's a lot of different styles and colors. I have them in like XXL up to 5, I think 5XL. And then I have some super soft shirts because that's really important to me. And I have kids shirts because that was always the thing that was requested after I did the first round. So yes, there are many multiple styles. Thanks for asking. So, we've we were pushed into a corner back in 1969, and so then Stonewall happened, and we got loud and we got physical, and they're pushing us into a corner again. And it's just wild to me to see people say like, "Oh, we don't need pride anymore," especially now. Um, but like I think a big part of it is that people don't know queer history, and I think that's by design. Um, and that's why they're trying to erase queer people from the history, right? Like they were erasing words like transgender and queer from like government websites and like the Stonewall National Monument page, like which you're really gonna erase trans people from Stonewall? Like trans people are Stonewall. Are you kidding me? Like it doesn't even make sense. So like they're moving forward. Um, we had, other things thinking about before Stonewall, right? Like I said, it was criminalized to be homosexual. There were cross-dressing bans, right? And then look at Project 2025. What it wants to do to us is it wants to remove sexual orientation and gender um, from all federal laws and like all kinds of anything like federal. And so that's going to like strip queer people of legal protections around our identities. And also, they are trying to define sex solely based on like a binary biology, which doesn't exist because intersex people exist. Like they exist. They're a reality that like you can like not deny. Uh, but Project 2025 really wants to like categorize everybody in one of two categories. Um, and that also is a way that they are like reopening the doors to like forcing gender conformity, right? Because it's like these are your two norms. And so, it might be enforced by law enforcement, but like what we're seeing right now is queer people are being beaten for looking too gay by civilians, right? Uh, I had someone in my comment section, and I get comments like this all the time, the other day, but just as an example, that they said that I had a punchable face because of my dyke haircut. So think about that. Like, just because I have like two sides of my head shaved, like I have a non-conforming haircut, and I have long hair. I don't know. I have a non-conforming haircut, and they didn't like my voice was the other thing. And they said it meant I was punchable, and someone should punch me in the face. Like, because my voice and hair isn't like sweet and soft, and I don't have like the I don't conform. I should be punched. And that's like really typical kinds of things. Like they literally are threatening violence. And of course I reported the comment to Facebook and it was like, this doesn't go against our community violence guidelines. They're advocating for violence against me and it doesn't go against community guidelines. Thanks, Meta. And that's why I like it over here on Substack so much better. And that's another reason why we need Pride in 2025. Um, and so, they there's a lot they want to do with this Project 2025 thing. They want to prioritize families that are like the traditional family, married father, mother, and children. And they want to label other family structures as like a threat to health and safety. And they also, they have this obsession with like birth rates, and so a lot of them are saying, oh well, like if people are so gay, it's hurting the birth rates, and so that's why like we're a threat to health and safety. Is like if we're gay, we're not reproducing naturally, and so we're a threat to the birth rates. And if we're trans, like they think that's a threat to their birth rates. Like they are obsessed with birth rates because they want little labor to be cogs in the capitalist machine. Like that's why they want the birth rates. The dog slurping the water is just like too distracting. Um, can tell that person to go back to the hole they came from? Please do. Trump goes, Vance is just as bad. I agree. But there is one thing I will say that I think is a little different about Trump versus Vance and what there's some things that make Vance worse, and there's some things that make Trump worse. And there's you know what I mean? Like for us. Like so Vance doesn't have the cult following that Trump does, like because Trump's followers are Trump's followers. They follow him, his brand, and anyone that is not in with Trump, like they turn on. And even when like Elon was in with Trump, a lot of them still were like, I don't like this Elon guy. He's a foreigner. He's not, And so Trump has a cult following that Vance doesn't have. If Trump is out of the picture, Vance won't have the same amount of support. Everyone's gonna drink water right now. So that's one thing that Vance doesn't have going for him that might work out if Trump steps down or, say can't take office again or has a stroke because he's an old guy. He looks like he's in bad health. Um, oh my gosh, that's some slurping. Vance, 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 Vance. Uh, and Vance is a bit sharp and manipulative and devious and snaky. And so that I think would be really bad for us because Trump is unfiltered and says the quiet part out loud, more so in this presidency, I think, than the last one. And I think he's really outraging some people, or he's making so many really incompetent mistakes that maybe Vance wouldn't make. So that could be worse for us. So it could really go a few different ways unless we charge all of them and just take them all out. Because I'm sure there are multiple crimes that they could all be charged with because I'm pretty sure all of them have done crime being in office in the last few months. Like all of the MAGA people have done something illegal if we look hard enough. I'm pretty sure. Most, if not all, have probably done something illegal already. They want a family where the mediocre, whiny white man is in charge. The woman is a hoe, a nanny, and a parrot. The child is to be quiet. The daddy is to speak. Many of these men are perverts, pedophiles. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. Like, God, what world do we freaking live in? Where I'm like, yeah, that's true. And it's like, fuck, why is that true? And the other thing, I've been obsessively studying the how we got here thing. And a lot of people they targeted whiny white men, you're not wrong about that. Were white guys who didn't know how to be politically correct and were really upset that people didn't think their jokes, their racist, inappropriate, bigoted jokes were funny anymore, and were just so offended that they didn't know how to navigate the situations and they didn't know how to basically not be bigots because they were raised that way. They don't know another way, but that's gonna mean doing the work, buddy. You've got to do the work. Goodness knows I have had some problematic shit I have had to let go of over the years, and I probably still have problematic shit I need to let go of. And so it's realizing one by one, you're gonna realize that's not cool, that's not cool. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Oh, that's not cool either. Wow, I'm learning all these things I gotta let go of because I'd never thought of it before. It's a freaking journey, but these people aren't ready to do a journey. They just are like, I can't help it. It's the way I was raised. I'm gonna blame my mommy. Whiny. Whiny babies. Not an insult to babies. Babies are cute and cuddly. Babies are kind of fun. Whiny baby men are not fun. So we needed something else to call them because I think that's an insult to babies. I like babies. I don't like these bigots. Yeah, right-wing Christian nationalists are a big problem as well. And the money they have to push their agenda, the Heritage Foundation and many others. Yeah, many others. Focus on the Family has been pushing out their behaviorism, which is basically the Focus on the Family method is the ABA, but used for children in the church. Just the other commenter meant you want children to be quiet and not making waves. That is the Focus on the Family method for indoctrinating your children and using religion to indoctrinate and control your children. I've shared it before at my blog, information Focus on the Family's website talking about how you need to indoctrinate your children early when they're impressionable, because as they grow, and I'm paraphrasing, it basically explains that not using direct language, that they'll become more resistant to the brainwashing and the programming as they age and start to be able to think for themselves. You got to get them young, which is gross. But that's what they say about gay conversion therapy, and that's what they say about neurodivergent conversion therapies like ABA, which are all created by the same people. Gay conversion therapy, which they want to bring back. Ivar Lovaas and George Reckers had a big hand in gay conversion therapy. Lovaas is dead. We should go, spit on that grave. I don't know where it is. Spit on that thing. No, I don't wanna say that. No, I take it back. Rewind. I didn't say that. I'm gonna have to cut that out. Um, Lovas is dead. May he not rest in peace for all the horrible things he did. And then Reckers is still alive, the dirty bastard, and he's a very problematic figure. You can look him up. Buddy buddies with James Dobson. Ooh, you go to then that gets you to focus on the family. And so we've gone from Lovas and Reckers, gay conversion therapy, Lovas ABA, and then Reckers and Dobson using the same conversion therapy methods on non-gay kids to make kids compliant. It's all about compliance to the social norms, hierarchies, whatever they are. It doesn't matter. Like they use the same conversion therapy methods on anyone who's an outlier, whether it is autistic and neurodivergent kids, whether it is queer kids, whether it is kids that have behavioral issues, just really just free thinkers, kids that don't conform. They want to use behaviorism to force them to conform. And this is really dangerous because it is like all of these like rewards and punishments. And so, like with autistic kids, a lot of times you're getting rewarded for doing things that are unnatural to you that you don't want to do. And your underlying need that leads to that behavior is completely ignored. And so it doesn't matter what you want. You learn that you please the adult around you and you ignore your own needs and you get rewarded for it. And so that's really dangerous because as you're an adult, it means you can get into people pleasing relationships where you ignore your own needs and put other people's needs above your own, and it makes you very vulnerable to coercion, abuse, and manipulation and coercive control. Ask me how I know from personal experience. Yeah. So it's really bad to use these kinds of conversion therapy, coercion and control, compliance based therapies, which are not therapeutic. They cause PTSD. Like, look at queer populations who have had conversion therapy used on them. It causes PTSD, isolation, alienation from the family. Look at autistic and neurodivergent kids and look at the studies on ABA and PTSD and see that we have the same thing. We don't have a study, I don't believe, on the effects of this programming that's used from a religious sense because it's not like a formal program, although it kind of is. You know what I mean? Like an informal formal. But we have lots of people who have religious trauma from people trying to indoctrinate us and punishing us for being free thinkers. So I've had to unfuck myself from behaviorism for most of my adult life. So yeah, we don't want to go back down that route. So that's another reason we need Pride more than ever. Oh my god, it's getting hot. All. Whew. Ugh. Okay, I think I have like 20 more minutes. I'm gonna sip hot coffee as I tell you I'm too hot. This is unadvised, but I need the coffee. I need the caffeine. Must have caffeine. Makes the brain juices go. Oh, let's see. All right. What else are we doing right now? Oh, the other thing, you know, before Stonewall, the first Pride event, we had a really big problem where law enforcement was weaponized against queer people. Police would routinely raid gay bars and arrest people under vice laws using vicious and brutal tactics to do so very frequently. And with Project 2025, it is calling for the persecution of teachers, librarians, and anyone who provides queer inclusive materials, labeling them as sex offenders, which is really serious. That's a felony sex crime. Like, you know how many things you can't do if you are on a sex offender list? In Texas, you can get a felony sex offender list just for urinating in public because they will upgrade it from urination to indecent exposure just so they can ruin your life and put you on that list. Welcome to Texas. It sucks here. I say with a smile. So, it's also the other thing that Project 2025 wants to do is equate trans and queer existences with pornography. So this is really serious. This is probably one of the most serious reasons we need Pride Month more than ever right now is this effort, and it's a big part of Project 2025 to criminalize queer people and queer identities by equating them with pornographic content. Pornographic. Now I can actually say porn here, I think. I think I can say that here. We'll see. I've said it a few times, so if not, I'm in trouble. Um, and so, Project 2025 labels transgender identities and queer advocacy as pornography. And it also says it is the sexualization of children if children have access to that content in any way. And this could be like simple pride social media posts, like the Sesame Street post that they posted with all the little fuzzy puppets holding hands, which is like sweet hand holding, nothing sexual, right? Straight people can hold hands in public, but if a queer person does it, it's automatically sexual and pornographic because they want to define our relationships as devious, right? And so they're saying that, purveyors of pornography should be imprisoned, and they want educators, librarians, and others who share these material in any way so that minors have access to them to be classified as registered sex offenders. And so, like, things that could criminalize potentially could be health care providers if they provide gender affirming care, right? That could be anyone who is doing a public display of any kind of queer content. This entire live could be considered pornographic. That could be something as simple as displaying a pride flag, having a drag event, a social media and internet post or a blog, if a minor can see it, like, could be a crime under what Project 2025 wants to bring forward. And that could be even like a teacher using inclusive curricula, or maybe even just simply using a student's pronouns. Like, we don't, there's not a clear line to this. And so it's a really slippery slope. And people are going to die. Like, it's like that woman's like, we all die. Like, that is so gross. But queer people will die. And queer people have already died. About the case I read to you earlier. And I wrote the notes I'm reading on before I read about that case. It's like, yeah. But that's because Project 2025's policies and rhetoric create this framework that is going to enable severe persecution. It will enable and embolden people who want to create direct physical violence towards queer and trans people. It already has. Like in Texas, like, we already saw this hate crime that the police department were waiting to push to see if they charge it as such. But Texas is like all embracing the Trump Kool-Aid, so it doesn't look good. And then, we've got these indirect lethal consequences, like what happened there. But then also there's like the health and policy consequences, right? Like, for example, the rhetoric of Project 2025, which has been in the public, like in the public lexicon for a while now. Repeatedly, they are describing being queer as a toxic ideology, right? And they have this theory of social contagion. Like, if people see other queer people, it's going to make them get queer too, right? But really what it is, it's like people who are already queer see queer people and they go, oh my God, it's okay to be queer. I don't have to be ashamed, because we know we're queer, whether we have a language for that queerness or not. I knew when I was 4 or 5 I wasn't a girl. Like, I knew, but I didn't know non-binary people existed. I didn't have any idea it was a thing. I knew, like, there was trans people, and I was like, oh, that's cool, trans men, trans women. But I was like, I don't quite fit either of those. I was like, I think I'm trans adjacent. I don't really know. Like, there's not a label for what I am. So I'm just like, not girl, I'm a me. Because, like, I'm a me. I'm gender fluid. Happy Pride Month for everyone who's wants to know. But I didn't know, because I didn't know being gender fluid was an option. I didn't know being non-binary was an option. So I was just like, I'm alone. I have these weird feelings that I don't think any person could possibly identify with, and I'm just a mess and nobody will get it. And then, like, I, as an adult, getting on the internet, finally, like, stumbled across other non-binary and gender fluid people to talking about their experiences. And I was like, for the first time in my life, in my 30s, like, oh my gosh, this is exactly my experience. This is like my whole life, my experience. It's finally, I have an answer. Oh my gosh, yes. But, like, I didn't suddenly become queer when I finally learned the language for being queer, for my type of queerness. I didn't suddenly become trans or non-binary and gender fluid when I learned those things were a thing. I was always gender fluid. I was always non-binary, I just didn't know how to describe that experience. And so my experience was erased because I didn't have a language to describe that experience until I was in my mid-30s, right? And so, you know, I didn't become non-binary when I got that language. I just came out as non-binary when I got that language. Just like I didn't become autistic and ADHD when I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD. I've always been autistic and ADHD. I just didn't have a language to describe those experiences. I just thought I was a loser. I thought I was a failure. I thought I was a fuck up. I thought I was I just thought I was a problem and I sucked before I found out I was neurodivergent and started to learn to work with my brain instead of against my brain and started to appreciate all the ways being neurodivergent also makes my brain really cool, even though it's frustrating sometimes. It's not all good, it's not all bad. It just is. It's just me, and that's okay. Once I stopped comparing myself to people whose brains were nothing like mine. Right. Squirrel. I don't know where I was going with that. But that's why I have notes on my screen, because I cannot be trusted to stay on a topic. But unless you're new, you know that already, so. But, that's the problem with, what is going on right now is they are framing queer people as predators, and that fuels hate crimes, like what happened in San Antonio, Texas. That leads to more vigilante violence that we are already seeing against queer people. We've got the language transgenderism, social contagion, groomer, predator, pedophile. These things are being thrown around carelessly, ironically, by people that watch a lot of trans porn, and many of which probably are predators, groomers, and pedophiles. Projection much? You notice that? Anyone else notice that? A lot of things that happen in this regime, they accuse other people of are actually things they're doing. They're accusing other people of doing things they're doing very frequently. Predators. Andrew Tate and the Tate brothers, those are predators. They flew predators home they're importing predators. Well, they're talking about keeping the children safe, but those guys are human traffickers and rapists, right? And then look at Trump. Trump used to be good friends with Epstein. His names are all over those flight logs. Epstein got girls from Trump. What about keeping women safe? Keeping women safe, my ass. Mr. Grab 'em in the whoop. Yeah. Get out of here with that nonsense. But they're projecting everything onto queer people. And they say queer people existing publicly is a threat to children. Sesame Street's little happy post, and they do it every year. It's they're holding hands, and it just shows a bunch of different colored puppet hands, and it makes a rainbow together, all the hands. It's really cute. They shared it, I think, last year or the year before, and I reshared it then too, and I reshared it again. And I'm here they come. They're gonna accuse Sesame Street of grooming. I already knew when I saw it. Here they come. They're gonna be saying it. And of course, there was a news story oh, the right wing is saying Sesame Street's grooming the children for having the most innocent little hand holding post, right? That straight people can hold hands all day, every day, and it's fine. Straight people can make out in movies, but it's fine. But puppet holding hands? No. Too graphic. Because it's gay. And you don't even know if it's gay because you only see arms. That's the other thing. It's like this, right? So, you don't see any faces. It's all just a bunch of arms, stacked like this. So, for all you know, they could be straight puppet couples. It's just that rainbow flag. They call us snowflakes, but they are so, just set off by a rainbow flag. Rage. Oh no, rainbows. Rah! I can't handle it. Who's the snowflake now? Oh no, it's Pride Month. I need a month. Pay attention to me. What about me? What about Bob? Whiny and desperate for attention. They're just, mediocre. The other thing that's really bad, looking at what Project 2025 wants to do, is it does want to expand religious refusal policies, and we've already seen that happening in some places, which will allow businesses to deny services to queer people based on their personal religious beliefs. And so if this actually goes into place, it would result in increased instances of queer people experiencing homelessness due to rolling back of anti-discrimination practices, as well as unemployment due to removing of workplace safeguards. So that is also in 2025. Like, they can fire you for being trans or queer. They want to be able to do that again. They want to be able to have us be evicted from places for queer behavior. They dehumanize you by calling it behavior. Autistic behavior, queer behavior, trans behavior, bad behavior. Like, these behaviorists, they're trying to, like, when you hear that, they're like manipulating and trying to control us. Behaviorism is all about crowd control, conforming to the norm. And then when we participate in those systems, like, we're like willingly participating in it, in our own assimilation. And like, they started with this, the behaviorism, like, long before Lolas and these other guys. Like, they did it to indigenous people and like the different schools and like in the Catholic schools too. My grandma has some stories about Catholic schools. Woo. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing though too. Like, you know, queer and trans people will die from being unhoused and losing their jobs and not being able to support themselves. And then also, like, if you think about these religious refusals, like, they can have deadly consequences. Like, if a medical service provider, for example, like, you go to a hospital, and especially if you're in a rural area, I think you go to a hospital in a rural area, it's the only hospital, and the doctor on call is like, I can't treat you, you're trans, and I think God is killing you, and it's part of my religion to let you die because I can't help you because I think it's God's will you die. And there's not another hospital for miles. What happens? What happens? How many people are going to die? Because people are like, it's against my religion to save your life, you know, or just refusing health care and medical care. We already have had women in Texas and other states and people in Texas and other states who have died because they couldn't get healthcare access when they were going through like miscarriage or having pregnancy complications that would require termination because of the strict abortion laws. Doctors are like, sorry, it's a liability. I can't help you with that. So women are dying. We have a woman that was like on life support. She might still be. She's probably still on life support, like for weeks and weeks and weeks. Uh, who is literally like brain dead and an organ failure, but they're just keeping her alive artificially because she has a baby in her womb that will probably not even be viable or okay when it is born because of the conditions of growing inside of basically a dead mother, which is really horrific. What was the other one? There was a woman in Texas, I think it was Texas, who was arrested after having a miscarriage in a bathroom and spent months in prison. And then they had a funeral for her fetus while she was in jail, and they named it and like gave it personhood. So yeah, they want to take away people's rights. They also want to put it back to where like women can have credit cards on their own and like need their husband's approval to do a lot of things. So they want to classify everybody in one or two categories. And anyone they classify as a woman is going to be a second class citizen again. And if you're marginalized, well, they hate you. You're screwed. They also, let's see, they want to ban gender affirming care nationwide. Adults, children, it doesn't matter. For children, they want to call it mutilation and child abuse, even though it is life-saving for those who need it. And for children, they aren't getting surgeries. Usually children, it's just puberty blockers, which is basically just like a pause on puberty. And the funny thing is straight cis kids can still get puberty blockers because sometimes there are medical conditions, other medical conditions, in addition to being trans, where puberty blockers are helpful. And for those other medical conditions, it's still okay, but just not for being trans. Like, anyway, there's a few medical conditions that puberty blockers are also for, but they only want to block it for trans children. Right. And so that, and despite this being life-saving care, right, they want to deny life-saving care to trans children, basically. They want to deny things that keep trans people employed, that keep us supported, like that keep us from being evicted from our homes. So they want to kill trans people. They want to unrecognize queer people. And, thinking about trans affirming care in the past when there wasn't historically easy access to it. There were dangerous underground, unregulated ways people were accessing care. It was much less safe back then, just like when anything prohibition doesn't work. Like prohibition didn't work with alcohol, it hasn't been working with cannabis, and that's why that's rolling back in the other direction. Prohibition doesn't work. Prohibition of abortion doesn't work. It just makes the thing more dangerous. So abortions and prohibition of abortion, it just gets more dangerous. Oh, that was another thing before I forget, because it just came to me. I didn't have it in my notes because it was a new thing. In Texas, they have these like warped idea bounty hunter law things where it's like if you help a Texan get an abortion, like even if you get an abortion in another state where it's legal, they want to like charge you for it and charge the woman for it, and like they want to start like labeling abortions as murder. So just be ready. But so like they use law enforcement cameras to search for a woman who they say terminated a pregnancy, and they searched all of these other states' cameras where the woman went, even states where abortion was legal, to look for her. And they spent like I don't know how much time and how many like searches they did to track down a woman who had an abortion outside of the state of Texas. So like that's interesting. Like what is the law to like prevent states where abortion is legal from sharing information with states where abortion is not legal, right? And like, does it mean like, oh, I'm a Texan, I have to obey Texas law even when I leave Texas? That's what Texas wants. So what does that mean? When I leave Texas, I also can't smoke weed in Colorado and New Mexico because it's legal there. Like once I go to New Mexico and Colorado, I can legally smoke weed. Once I go to New Mexico and Colorado, they legally have abortions. I should legally be able to do. When you go to Las Vegas, you can legally gamble and do other things, right? I've never been to Las Vegas, but I know there's things you can do in Las Vegas that are legal there that aren't legal in other places. And because it's legal there, you can do it when you're there. But Texas wants to set a very new dangerous precedent with this. A Texas person can't go out of state to get an abortion thing. And we will track you down and make sure we like sue and press charges against anyone who is involved. Uh, we'll see how it goes, but it's not looking good. It's all about control. All of this is about control and conformity. You know, it's just wild to see. With this Heritage Foundation thing, this Project 2025 thing, like there was an alarm being sounded in advance. We had time to do something. But everyone was like, this isn't going to happen. It'll never happen. It's unconstitutional. It's impossible. No way. No way. And then here we are. And you don't have to dig very far to see, like, we've got ties to groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom, the ADF, and all of these really dangerous, hateful organizations. And so, this is going to be really bad for all of us, but especially queer people, Project 2025, like especially trans people that, are going to have a really big target on us. Right now it's stopping short of explicitly demanding the death penalty for being queer, but we've got all this foundation set for like criminalization and dehumanization, and then just this endorsement of foreign legal laws, by having ties to the ADF, who like spread a lot of those laws around. This does create like this risk where we are really close to state-sanctioned violence against queer people and extrajudicial violence as well, which we're already seeing, like vigilante violence against queer people. It's already happening. And so this is all of this is why we, more than ever, 2025, we need Pride Month. We are now facing many of the same challenges we faced in 1969 when Stonewall happened. And we are also facing some entirely new challenges because technology in the world and things change that didn't exist back then. And I don't have an answer to it. I just wanted to share information because I I think that, this idea of recriminalizing queer people existing publicly and trying to push queer people into the shadows is an angle that isn't being talked about enough. And I think it's a thing that is really gonna shock people who haven't been paying attention and don't realize this is coming. Uh, some of us who read Project 2025, like, we knew this was coming a while ago, and, like, for me personally, it has been like watching a train derailment in slow motion and, like, not being able to stop or do anything. I'm like, "Oh, that train's gonna crash. The train's gonna crash. Hey, the train's gonna crash. Hey, someone, the train's gonna someone, the train's gonna crash. Anybody?" And everyone's like, "No, no, no." And then I'm like, "Oh, look, the train is crashing. The train is crashing. The train is crashing. There goes the train. It is crashing." And that's where we are right now, right? The train is crashing. And all the cars and all the mess is everywhere. And that's Project 2025. And it is here. And so much of it's already done. And Elon Musk, the big master of distraction, is leaving. He wants us to let him get back to selling us Teslas, which, yeah, I hope he realizes people are never gonna forget that signal that he did with his hand that I will never do. That thing, that salute that was not my heart goes out to you, because that's my heart goes out to you. That's a heart. That's a heart. It wasn't that. I know how to do a heart. Um, Now we gotta look at Russ Vought and Peter Thiel. Like, those are really important people we have to look at, because deep diving into these guys' dark enlightenment theory stuff and the technocracy stuff, like, they got some wild beliefs. And, like, you start talking about what these people believe, people be like, "You sound like a conspiracy person." And I'm like, Well, this is what the people that are pulling the strings, like, believe. They have really out there beliefs." Um, but these people are architects of this thing. And so now, like, the Elon is out of the way, we really need to focus on these other people who are still doing the things, because the stuff is still happening. But also, I'm not going to forget about Elon. We'll make sure we highlight it every time he does some deplorable shit. So Tesla, people don't forget what a garbage a-hole he is, and that they shouldn't buy a Tesla because they shouldn't support Yahtzees. We'll keep it up. We'll keep the pressure on. But it's time to move the pressure in a new direction. We've also got RFK. We have was it NOAA or one of the weather? No, FEMA. FEMA? I don't know. One of the weather or disaster people heads said they weren't aware that America has a hurricane season. So that's not good. So that's incompetence right there. So we've got a lot of just people that we need to get out of here. We got a lot of different potential people to talk about and to spread the word about, and to help people see who they really are. Because I think that's the thing, like, getting people to realize how really bad this stuff is, because the media is kind of downplaying, or I think afraid to be an alarmist when they're talking about a lot of these things. And that's kind of what got us here, is like downplaying and being afraid to be an alarmist. Because remember, there were news stories about Project 2025, but not nearly enough, because once Trump said, "Oh, I don't know anything about it, I never heard of it," like, they just, like, let that go. And it's like, why did you let that go? Like, he's already surrounded himself with architects of this thing. Like, that, like, you should have never let that go, that "I don't know anything about it, never read it." The only reason he never read it is because he doesn't read. Like, they're literally talking about creating, like, basically, like, picture books and, like, video presentations for his daily briefings, because he won't read. Like, he will not read the daily briefings. He just either he doesn't read or he can't read, I'm not sure. Uh, I don't know. Someone could read it to him, but he won't read. And so they're trying to make it interesting enough for him so that he will be willing to, like, take the morning briefings in, which is, like, the latest piece of nonsense I had. And it's like, well, if you're not interested in the security and what's going on in the world and the country, you probably shouldn't be the president. But that's just my opinion. All right, everyone. It's been an hour. I need to pause it, shut it down, back it off because if I let this video get really long, it'll take forever to re-upload and then I won't be able to repost it in a reasonable amount of time. I am going to leave this replay up. I've gotten braver and bolder. I'm going to rewatch just to make sure I don't say anything weird. No, I say everything weird. What am I talking about? Everything I say is weird. We'll just let it go. I'm just going to post it and I'll leave it up publicly for everyone. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning. I know it's a little early for some of us. I'm just trying to beat the heat and the rain here, but I'm starting to sweat. So I'm going to have to turn on a big fan that's really loud, and I can't talk to you with a giant fan on because you wouldn't be able to hear me. So I'm starting to sweat too much. I can't. So I'm going to go get my greasy, sweaty self in front of a fan so I don't start to just like become a giant puddle of a person. Anyway, I will see you all next week. Stay safe. I'll put out another Substack post tomorrow. Like I said, if you are interested in the shirt, it's like so awkward. Uh, there's a post on my Substack information about where you can get it. It says refusing assimilation into neurotypical society, NeuroDivergent Rebel. So thank you all. See you next time. Bye.